Hello everyone, this is Amanda from Wayward and Whimsical Creations, and today I am going to show you how to weave inverted spiral. Inverted spiral is a pretty neat spiral weave in the fact that it holds its shape. A lot of other spiral weaves, unless you weave them into themselves or clasp them, will unravel, and inverted spiral just holds its shape as is. And it reminds me of a strand of DNA, which I think is very, very cool. To make inverted spiral, you need rings that have an aspect ratio, or AR, of 4. These two examples here are 16 SWG or standard wire gauge 1/4 or 1/4 inch jump rings. This example here is 18 SWG 3/16. For today's tutorial, I am going to be using 16 gauge 1/4 jump rings. To start, you want to create 2 little 1-in-1 chains that are just 2 units long. You're going to take an open jump ring and pop both of your little units on. And then, depending on how these units are laying, you're either going to have a right leaning spiral or a left leaning spiral. So when you smoosh the rings together, if they lean to the left, that means your spiral is going to twist to the left. If you take this ring and layer it behind the first set and then smoosh it and it leans to the right, you're going to have a right leaning spiral. And I will show you how to weave both. For this first example, we're going to do a right leaning spiral. So we need to close this top jump ring. And then we need to add another one right next to it. And then we need to flip our work over, and we're going to add 2 jump rings to these 2 jump rings at the top of the weave. And then what I like to do is I like to take a twist tie and go through both sets of rings we just added. You could also use an extra jump ring here, just something to secure the weave. Okay, so now we're looking down at the top of the weave, and do you see how it creates kind of an inverted S shape? Remember that. First off, we're going to take an open jump ring and we're going to weave it through the top set of rings. And then we're going to weave another one through the bottom set of rings. Okay, now this is where it gets a little tricky. So in the center here, we have our inverted S shape. And you see how these top rings are leaning to the right away from the center of the weave? You are going to connect this bottom jump ring here to this top right jump ring. You want the jump ring that's leaning the furthest away from the center of the weave. So through the bottom and through that top right jump ring. And then kind of let it fall back. Now our ring that was on top is now on the bottom. And again, we're going to go through that bottom ring and then pick up that top right jump ring. And then you want to take all the jump rings you just added and smush them together. And it once again creates that inverted S shape. One jump ring through the top set of rings. One jump ring through the bottom set of rings. And again, looking down at our weave, these center rings create an inverted S shape. Your bottom ring is going to connect to the one that's leaning the furthest to the outside, which is the top right. So grab the bottom ring, go up and through that top right ring. And then when you close it, your ring that was on top naturally falls down towards the bottom. So we're going to pick it up with a jump ring. So through the bottom ring, through the top right. Squish it. And again, we're left with this inverted S shape. Jump ring through the top set of rings. Jump ring through the bottom set of rings. Once again, looking down into our weave, this bottom jump ring gets connected to the one that's leaning the furthest towards the outside of our weave, which is the top right. And when it's a right leaning spiral, you're always going to be connecting the bottom ring to this top right. So, well, come on now. Picking up the bottom ring and then going through that top right. And then you need to let the rings you just added fall back a little bit so you can pick up your other ring. So I'm picking up this bottom ring now and going through the top right. And then collecting all the rings you just added and smushing it to the top. And it again leaves us with this inverted S shape. So one more time. One jump ring through both sets. So one jump ring through the top set of rings. And then one jump ring through the bottom set of rings. Looking down into our weave, the bottom ring is going to get connected to the top right. And it's always the one that's leaning the furthest away from the center of our weave. And then all the rings we just added, smush to the top, rinse and repeat. And you're just going to keep doing that until you get the length that you want it. Now, if you wanted to do a left leaning weave, when you bring your rings together, see how this one forms an S shape, whereas the right leaning one forms an inverted S shape. And I'm also going to show you how to weave two colors together in this version. So we're going to start by once again taking the same color ring as our top set of rings and going through the top rings. And then taking a ring that matches this color and going through the bottom set of rings. Now this is where the left leaning one gets a little tricky, and if you're weaving two colors together. So if we're looking down at the center of our weave into our S shape, the top left corner are now the rings that are leaning the furthest away from the center of the weave. So this bottom ring is going to get connected to the top left, but you have to use a purple ring through the black ring to keep your colors spiraling. So we're going to pick up the bottom ring, go through the top left, flip our work over, kind of let those rings fall back, and then we're going to take a, well, that one went rolling away. We're going to take a black ring, and we're going to go through the bottom purple, and then through the top left black, like so. And then when you bring all your rings together, it should look like that. So you have purple on top and black on the bottom. And again, we're looking at this S shape. So a purple ring is going to go through these top rings. And then a black ring is going to go through the black rings. And looking down into our weave, we're connecting this bottom ring to the top left, but we're using a purple ring to do it. So when you're making these connection points, you have to swap the colors. So purple ring through the black, and then picking up that top left ring. Flipping it over so the purple ring is now on the bottom. Taking a black ring, going through that bottom purple, and then the top left black ring. And then when we bring all those rings together and smush them, we're again left with this S shape. So one more time. Purple ring through the top set of purple. Black ring through the bottom black. But then to connect them to our corners, we need to swap colors. So we're taking a purple ring, going through the bottom black and through that top left purple. Flip it over, let these rings kind of fall back so you can see your next connection point. So now we're taking a black ring and we're going through the purple and then picking up the top left black corner. And close it up. And then we smush everything together to start all over. And you're just going to keep doing that until you get the length you want. To finish off the weave, once you get the length you want, you're just going to take 2 jump rings and go through each set of rings that make up that S shape. So 2 purple through the purple, to black through the black. And then another jump ring to connect the 4 rings we just added together. And then if your piece is long enough, you can add a clasp if you're doing a necklace or a bracelet. Or you can just leave it as is if you're going to use it as a pendant. And that, my friends, is how you weave inverted spiral. Happy weaving!